Hi there. So hello and welcome to the latest in the Earn, Learn, Thrive LinkedIn Lives. And with me this morning, well, it's morning where I am, it's evening where Joe is. I have Dr. Jo Gakonga, and she and I are going to be talking about the value of video in your business. So, Joe, can I just ask you to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and why video is so important to you?
Sure. Thank you for having me. Nice to be here. Video has so a bit about me. I'm a teacher educator. Started as an English teacher 30 years ago, very old. CELTA trainer for the last 20 years, and for the last 10 years I've been making video at elttraining.com. In fact, 11 years. It's just about my anniversary again. So and video really started for me with ELT training. That's what the whole thing came about, and the whole site is based on video based courses. So that's why it's important, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people probably will be familiar with your site, and particularly with your sort of original course, if you like, which is a course for CELTA trainees. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's still the big one. I that was the one that I started with, and it came about because I had this problem of all these people who would apply for CELTA, and they were basically had the right kind of attitude and qualifications and that sort of thing, but they didn't know what a noun was sometimes. Certainly didn't know what a preposition was, or phrase, or verb, or why articles are difficult. And so that's really what I wanted to do. And that's I think why video was so important, because there are lots of good books that explain those things. But I found that I'd send people off with, I don't know, Scrivener or Harbour, or something like the Teaching Tenses book by Rosemary Aitken, or big thick tomes like Michael Swan. And they go, but this is like reading Russian. I can't understand. There's too much. It's not, it's not easy to. I just want someone to explain it to me. And I thought, well, I can try and do that, and that's what I do try and do. I think people find that a much more easily accessible approach, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I'm just looking at the comments because lots of people saying hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Aditya, Nicola, Bhavna, Anna, LinkedIn user, one person we can't see who it is, Annie, Claire. Yeah, do say hi in the comments. And if you have any questions or comments going along, do add them, because we can see them here in the StreamYard studio. So yeah, going back to what you were saying, Joe, about more accessible. I mean, I'm currently helping my 17-year-old daughter revise for her A-level mocks, and we are doing quite a lot of that by watching videos on YouTube, because actually she just finds that much easier to kind of absorb the information than from the written page. Yeah. And I do think, that this is partly a kind of a generational thing, if you like, and this is one of the reasons why I would say the video is becoming so much more important, because often it's, people prefer it.
I think that's true. My son, who's just finished a degree, did an awful lot of research, I guess, whatever, from listening to podcasts and YouTube videos, as well as more traditional kind of reading stuff. So I think you're right that there is maybe particularly that generational thing, but it's not just that. I have a lot of people who are my age or similar, our ages or similar, who also just find that it's kind of nice. It feels like somebody's there talking to you and saying it in nice sort of simple language, and you can stop and go back and play it again. And if you feel, you don't have to feel embarrassed that, I didn't quite understand that, can you say it again? You can. I think the disadvantage perhaps is that it takes longer. You can read a page of text a lot faster than you can listen to someone explain it. So if you want to kind of quickly grab some information, then text can be better. But I think for a sort of a slow burn, a bit more of a slow burn like that, it can be certainly a good addition. I mean, it doesn't mean one doesn't have to be better than the other, does it? It's another string to your bow, if you like.
Well, exactly. And I think, I think as educators, I think we can try and provide different ways of absorbing the information that will work for different people. So with my business foundation course, for example, as well as the videos, I also have audio so people can listen to it while they're out and about, walking the dog or what have you. I haven't done this yet, but I'm working on transcriptions as well, for people who prefer to read, or maybe once you've watched the video, you might want to then read through it again rather than watching the whole thing.
I do provide transcripts now. The last couple of courses that I've made, I've done transcripts. In fact, it's easier now because I always script my videos now. I didn't used to, but I do now. And I think it makes them better because they're more concise and I think they're easier to listen to. But so you've got a transcript. Otter's really good. Otter.ai is really good for automatic transcription. And actually the platform that I use, LearnWorlds, now has a really good feature. I've just upgraded, and so I've got access to this great feature, which means that it'll automatically transcribe the video, and it's interactive, so that you can look at the transcript and just, if you want to listen to that little bit, you can just click on that little bit and listen to that bit. So you can do the transcript with the video. I think that's a really nice feature.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think you were saying sort of Otter, i.e. I've been using Descript, which is another one, know, and I think they are becoming cheaper and easier to use. And, because it used to be a major problem having a transcript of a video, didn't it? And I think, no longer. Just seeing Panoraya saying not necessarily faster to read a text for people with differentiated reading needs. Absolutely. Yes. Whereas, audio visual input is simpler. Yeah. And I mean, that's partly the issue with my daughter. So, I get that. Yeah, great. Okay. So we've been talking quite a bit then about sort of using video as part of education, if you like, for courses either that are online courses, or indeed, you could do it for blended learning as well.
Cool.
But that's of course not the only reason for using video. There's also the whole marketing side of things as well. Yeah. So, I mean, presumably this is, you mentioned like the course that you do. Tell us a little bit more about that and the kinds of videos that you're looking at with your students.
Yeah. So I think with when I'm doing the video, so I might have a video making course as well. Some of the people who are here have already done it. I noticed some familiar names. But I think that we're always talking about that idea that there's two aspects to this. And one is making videos that are part of an online course, which will be there forever and or for a long time. They've got a long shelf life. And then also making marketing videos, which are going to pull people towards that. And there's a real trick, I think, in finding something that will be a nice deep seam of things that you can make marketing stuff about that doesn't impinge on what you want to sell. So for me, how I did that was that I got this Grammar for Language Teachers course, which says, this is what a noun is and a verb and why phrasal verbs are difficult and right. And then I went back. So I thought, well, most of the people are going to do that are CELTA trainees. And so I started making videos originally once a month because that's all the time I had. When I started, I had 3 young children. The oldest at that time was 10. And so and a job, I didn't have time. So I set myself a deadline of the 15th of each month to make a new video. And those were to do with sort of what would have been CELTA input sessions, essentially classroom methodology and how to teach vocabulary and grammar and skills and what have you. And that was quite good because it, that built into another free resource, but they were also on YouTube. YouTube's been very good. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But that wasn't the same as what I was selling to people. But obviously it was related and linked, and it was, there was plenty of material there. I could have made 50, 60 videos that are like that for marketing purposes.
Yes, I mean that is a whole I mean, it's a huge topic, isn't it? But a really important one, that kind of what you give away, if you like, and what you don't. And I think it does depend so much on the nature of your business. You know, so I think for me, for example, like with the business and mindset coaching, I don't particularly draw very strong lines, because actually I know that it's getting all of those bits will help you, but actually it's the working together with me and having like the whole jigsaw that really makes the difference. So I don't need to worry quite so much. But if it's something where there actually is kind of like, you know, procedural knowledge, if you like, then I think that's a different thing. So it very much depends on the nature of your business, I think, where you draw that line. And you can't really say to people, oh, this is how you do it. Because actually,
absolutely.
You know.
I mean, I think there are some things which are easy than others. So if you're in the language teaching business, so for example, you know, I've had people who are doing IELTS preparation or business English or aviation English or something like that. And in that case, you know, Lexis is a really good scene, because you're never going to run out of words to teach people.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily impinge on, I can teach you how to prepare for the IELTS exam. You can need to know all those words anyway. You know, you can learn those words. But what I'm actually going to sell you is how to prepare for the exam, or how to do better in the exam, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and how to really use those words, because actually students often think that what they need is loads of words. And in fact, that is rarely the problem. You know, it's a much sort of more holistic thing than that, isn't it? So,
and that's how two sides can kind of work together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, we're talking about video in lots of different ways, and we haven't even mentioned the fact that we're on video at the moment. You know, so I mean, live video is another whole thing, isn't it? Which I think is, you know, becoming more and more popular. And you know, obviously that's a very different thing from something that's where you've scripted it and you've edited it and so on. And equally valid, I think, you know, for different reasons.
For different purposes, isn't it? It's different strokes for different, different not even folks, but I guess different situations and circumstances. You know, if you've got somebody who, a lot of this sort of thing, I think, is maybe is to some extent establishing your credentials, but also just people getting to know you, isn't it? I think that there's a lot of it's a very personal medium. I think that's what's really interesting about it to me. People, I often get people who say to me, I feel as if I know you. And I haven't met them. I don't know them. People coming up to conferences and say, oh, you know, I took you to bed with me. I've had you in the bath with me. Seriously, I'm not
That's slightly freaky, but yes.
Okay. But there is that element of people sort of feeling as if you were there for them at times, and I say particularly maybe in this sort of circumstance where it's a bit more off the cuff and you know, normal, if you like, normal conversation.
Well, it means that you really, I mean, you really are getting to know someone. I mean, there's a discussion to be had, isn't there, about the authenticity? But when we're doing a live video like this, you know, obviously it's much harder to kind of hide who we really are. Not that either of us are trying to do that in any of our videos, but you know, you do get that sense of it being the real deal.
Although I think what's interesting for me with when I've been working with people who are making video is actually that what they struggle with often in the more sort of scripted video, which is for a purpose, which is going to stay longer or whatever, and even, you know, more off the cuff type of stuff, for marketing, whatever. The thing that people struggle with is actually becoming their authentic self on video. So it's not that they're trying to hide themselves. They're just, because they feel nervous, because they're not used to it, because it's a bit of an intimidating kind of space at first. They're not sort of showing the real them. They're not thinking about, I've got to look into that lens and really believe that somebody's there, because they will be.
Yeah.
Not there now, but they will be. There's just a time lag.
Yeah.
But you've got to, that is quite a trick, I think, learning to look into the camera and really genuinely believe that you're talking to somebody. And I think once you get that, that's when you start to see people's real self come out. And it's really noticeable. I think I can feel it in myself. I can feel it when I click into, when I'm talking, oh, actually talking to you. I can feel the gear shift. And you can certainly see it in people. It's really noticeable. I think that's the people who become very popular. The YouTubers that you see and everything. You can see that it is, it's them. And
absolutely, really good point. That I think, and I think what has helped me probably is, prior to video becoming such a big thing and me doing more and more video, was years of doing webinars. Where you are talking to people and they are there, but you can't see them. And, kind of developing that real feeling that they're there was really important to me in that. And one of the reasons why when I do a webinar, I like to kind of keep asking people to put things in the comments and things. It's partly to keep them awake, but it is also so that I have that real sense of them being there. So I love what you say about, they will be there. It's just a time lapse. I think that's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And I think, this is all the different types of video that we've looked at. This is the common core. I think that it is about communicating with people and making a connection with people. And it's much easier, I think, to do that through video than through written text. And I say this as a writer, and I think written text can make connections, of course, but I do think it's easier with video.
And I think there's an interesting one there as well, in that obviously with written text, we all know it's very easy to edit it. We're very experienced at editing stuff. We've been doing it our whole school lives, our whole professional lives. It's a very normal process. Whereas with, I think there's an element of your mistakes are fine, stumbling is fine, not being perfect in front of the camera is fine. I think people actually appreciate a bit of vulnerability and a sort of humanness to it. But on the other hand, if you're constantly stumbling and umming and ahhing, it just becomes annoying to watch. And so that element of learning how to edit video so that it is more watchable, I think it's also a skill that you develop. You have to develop.
Well, the same thing goes for writing, thinking about it. You don't, if you're writing a blog post, you don't tend to just write a total stream of consciousness and immediately hit publish.
No, but what I'm saying is, I think for writing, we're very used to everybody. We all know we're educated. We know how to write. We know how to edit. Writing, because we've done it, a whole years and years and years and years. Whereas editing video, making it in the first place and then editing it afterwards is more of a for most of us an unusual skill, a skill that we have to develop, have to possibly consciously develop.
So I mean, that I think is one of the barriers for people, isn't it? I've no idea how to do any kind of editing. And I know that's certainly one of the things that you teach on your video creation course. I mean, what's your experience in terms of how people feel about that kind of thing? Do they have a big kind of hump to get over?
I think that the main thing is that people often sort of come to it feeling like, oh, this is going to be really technologically difficult. And it really isn't. It just isn't difficult. It is time consuming. I mean, it's not difficult in that, you've got to learn to use a program, and anything you learn to use, when you first used PowerPoint or Word or whatever, it took you a while to find out where all the buttons were, So there's an element of having to learn something new, but that's not really the hard bit. The hard bit is that it takes time. But what people tend to sort of do is, like, their initial reaction is like, oh my word, that interface is completely unfamiliar. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start with this. And then you go, oh, look at this is how this works, and and then it's sort of like, oh, oh, that's how you do it. Oh my word, I can just cut out that and ah, and it doesn't even show. And if there was a little bit of a bump, you can put a picture over it and nobody will ever know. And you know, and all this stuff, and it's like, oh, this is just, it's like kids in candy shops. You know, it's like, and I can do this, I can do that. And then of course that takes even more time because you learn to do all this fancy stuff, and then you know that takes even more time. But it's interesting and it's fun and it's creative. I think that's generally, as a general rule of thumb, that's how most people found come to feel about it.
Well, and I think it is a skill, you know, going forward that probably everybody is going to need to learn. Is my feeling. I mean, we've got somebody commenting here. There's no name, but they say don't underestimate the time for good video editing. Also, a decent camera and mic are important. So that's another kind of barrier potentially, isn't it? Is the equipment. I mean, I don't think it needs to be, but I think in people's heads it is.
A decent camera. That's a very decent camera. Really decent camera. You don't need anything else, actually. Mic, yes, but again, you don't need a very expensive one. That's the one I use, and it costs about 20 quid. So you know, and it's perfectly good. I think it's not what I'm using now. I'm just using I wouldn't use the one on my computer or my laptop anymore. I wouldn't use the standalone mic on any device. I would use a mic, but you don't need a lot of expensive kit. Lighting helps, but you can use a window. Tripod helps. You can prop stuff up on books. You know, you don't need. You've probably got a camera on your phone that will be perfectly good enough.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, somebody's saying about the latest iPhone. You don't need a latest iPhone.
I have a really good one now because I bought one last year, but I used to use a 7, and that wasn't, you know, that's not particularly expensive now. They're quite out of date, and the result was good. You really don't need a lot of expensive equipment because, to be honest, most people are going to be watching your video on a phone. And so the picture will be this big and the quality, whether the quality is super great or, you know, isn't going to make that much difference. If you're trying to make Steven Spielberg type productions, well, that's one thing, but you're not. You're probably, as a teacher, trying to make something which will either promote your services or which will be part of a course where people are learning something. As long as it's not horrible quality, I don't think it's that important, actually. I genuinely think certainly a phone's fine.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think a tripod is something that's worth investing in because you can get them for about £15.
Sure.
And it saves so much faffing about. You know what I mean? And certainly what you don't want, you know, you were talking about things being off-putting. I think that wibbly wobbly thing
definitely
is annoying, you know, if you're holding it.
Still, you don't be holding it.
But that's you know, that's about it, as you say, you know. So you really don't need a lot of expensive equipment to get started. And in terms of editing software, obviously you can buy it. And I mean, I recently invested in Camtasia, which I know is what you use, and I have to say I should have done it a long time ago because I was using free software and it was fine, but it's so much easier with Camtasia. But you do have that option to start with free software like iMovie or OBS I was using. You know, there are lots of options, aren't there? I mean, is there any others that you would particularly recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I use Camtasia and I give it to the people who are on my course because it's easier if everybody's on the same software and everyone's using the same thing. And I like it and I think it's a useful thing. And also I think once you know how to use one of those kind of programs, then they all pretty much work in the same way. And you could also then go to, you know, Adobe or, you know, whatever else. The only one that I know of that's free and very good is DaVinci, and that's excellent and very powerful, really good and free. But there's always going to be us, isn't there?
I thought there had to be one,
When I found it last year, I was like, this is it, holy grail. This is what I'll be able to use. I'll just give it to it. Yeah, everyone can have it. No problem. I've got a pretty new Surface Pro. Didn't like it. It's quite powerful. My laptop's quite powerful. It wasn't powerful enough. It needs a really good hardware to run the software. So that's the but. But if you've got decent
it's the RAM really, I think, isn't it? Because I mean, again, my daughter's been struggling with using Premiere Pro because she's only got 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is not a small amount really, but it's not enough for that.
Anthony Green's just asked, have you used a script for video editing? I thought you said you had. I tried it and I hated it. I did. When I heard about it, I thought, that's it, that's great, that's really, going to be perfect. And I couldn't get on with it. So I don't know, but you said you have used it, have you?
Well, I've used it for transcripts, but I haven't used it for editing. But I know that you can. I mean, there's so many options. I mean, you can do basic edits on Canva. You know, if you're just talking about chopping off the beginning and the end and, you know, a few simple things, that works perfectly fine. So, you know, there are options from the very simple right up to, you know, the extremely complex and professional.
And I think also that, you know, with all this stuff, it's fine to start with some toes in the water. You know, you don't have to go, oh, now I'm going to make online courses and be video and it's going to be my whole life. You know, it's taken me 11 years to get here, and most of that time I had a job as well as my family commitments, and it grew slowly, and it started off as a hobby, and I started off just on my laptop, and actually with my webcam and not with a microphone, and the things I look back on those videos now and I think, oh, they're a bit ropey, but people still watch them. And not, you know, I didn't have lights, I used the window, and you sort of slowly think, oh, actually I do want to invest a bit of money in lights or in a better iPhone or whatever it was. And so I think that it doesn't have to be, I'm going to do it all now. It can just be a slow burn, really. See if you like it, you know,
and kind of build your confidence bit by bit. You know, and a lot of it is about confidence as well. I mean, we're coming up to the end here, and maybe this is one of the biggest barriers, but is actually that, oh God, you know, everybody will be looking at me and what will they think, and this kind of thing. And you know, I get that.
I think you're absolutely right. Well, yeah, you get that, but I think that, you know, with some exceptions, like, you know, if you're talking about pronunciation, for example, you may find that you get some trolling and some people who really don't like what you say, and, you know, there might be some controversy there. But mostly, if you're putting out free activities for teachers on YouTube, you're pretty unlikely to get anybody who says anything nasty. Mostly people are going to go, thanks, that was great. That's a fabulous idea. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. That's what they're going to say. Like. Or they're going to go, no, I don't like it, and they'll switch off. But you'll never know whether they switched off. So mostly what you will see is, you know, positive comments. I used to get some things, used to really sting. Sometimes people would go, oh, your voice is really boring. And I used to go, oh, and then I thought, well, if you don't like it, don't watch. It's free. You know, have you got nothing better to do with your time? And you have to get a little bit of a thick skin. But mostly, as I say, with some exceptions, like if you're talking about things which might be controversial, there aren't many of them, but prom seems to be one that kind of really pushes people's buttons. Then I think mostly people, and it's amazing, you'll see some people's videos and you think, God, that's really ropey, and then you look how many views they've got and it's in the hundreds of thousands, and you see all the positive comments they've got underneath. There's a big world out there, and a lot of people who you know,
and looking for help and information. And I agree. And I think you do, you know, I mean, a lot of what you said goes for all kind of social media and YouTube and what have you, you know, whether it's video or not. But I think you do also get used to seeing and hearing yourself. You know, if you've never done it before, those first ones are a real, you know, hump to get over, because it's like, oh my God, do I look like that? Do I sound like that? But you do get used to it. And actually, you know, it doesn't bother me anymore in the way that it used to.
Yeah. And I think for me, for the first like 4 years I made video, I didn't make that. I just made, you know, a PowerPoint, talked over PowerPoint, and didn't show my face at all, because I kept thinking, oh, you know, I'm too long, too fat, too liney, too whatever, you know, and not, you know, not attractive enough. All the YouTubers are all very attractive, but they're not actually. You know, lots of people look very ordinary, and I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But as I say, after about 4 years, I thought, you know what, when I was watching other people's video, I thought I really wanted to know what they look like. If I was listening to them and I was making, you know, it's again, it's like forming a relationship with people. If you're forming a relationship with people, you want to know what they look like. And it's not that you want them to be particularly beautiful or whatever. You just want to see what they look like, because there's an element of that human connection, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, I think that's a great place to bring it to a close, actually, because we've been talking for half an hour now. But thank you so much, Jo, for talking to us. It's been a really interesting conversation. And I know that you have an edition, is that the word? A run of your group program for Video for Educators coming up shortly. Is that right? Tell us a little bit, just to take us out.
Yeah, so we start Video Creation for Educators, my voice program, is in its 2nd year now, and I've seen a couple of people in here who've done it, so who just said nice things, so that's good. It's a really lovely program to teach. I've got a new batch starting on the 15th of January. Limited places. I could open one more group if I had enough interest. It's sort of full, but we could start another group if I had some interest, and I'll be running it again later in the year, probably about 3 times during the year. And it's to take people from, I don't know anything about video, to, and maybe I've got some ideas about how I might want to use it in my life, to, I can make video, I can edit video, I feel comfortable in video, and I've got a really solid idea of where I'm going to take this, what sort of course I'm going to make, or how I'm going to market my services in order to bring in more money, I suppose. That's always a good thing, isn't it? Make some cash out of it.
Yeah, never a bad thing. Yes, so thanks very much for that then, Jo. I will also be doing a companion newsletter, as I always do, to go with this, talking about video, some of the things in here, and also some other content as well, so look out for that. And thank you very much, everybody who's been here live, and if you're watching later, do feel free to add comments or questions, and Jo and I can check back and see if there's anything you want us to respond to. So thank you very much. And
the link for the thing will be for the course will be somewhere around if anybody was interested and wanted more information.
Yeah, so I'll if you pop it in the comments, and then I'll put it in the description as well, and then it'll be easy for people to find. Perfect. So thank you. All right, and enjoy the rest of your day, or your evening in your case, Jo, there in Australia.
Have my dinner now. Have a glass of wine.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much. Bye. Bye.
Bye.